Welcome to Woke House. So we're covering the Four Noble Truths, and we're on the fourth noble truth, which is the Eightfold Path to Awakening. And the fourth noble truth was really hard for me to understand to begin with because it covers the eight things like right speech, right concentration, right thought. And I thought this was kind of like a staircase leading to enlightenment. Like if I practice right speech, if I practice right thought, if I practice right concentration, almost like you had to carry a book around with you to remind yourself and write down how you were going to practice these things, and write down when you weren't practicing these things as well, and just kind of like a mathematician constantly analyzing this these scenarios or these ratios of how much of your life you're spending in right thought and right action, right speech, and that kind of stuff. But I slowly started realizing that it's the main thing in Buddhism that the Buddha is basically saying is there are two things that you have to really concentrate on, and that is compassion and wisdom. So if you have compassion and you have wisdom together, you're going to naturally live this eightfold path. These things are going to come natural. There's going to be a part of your nature, your Buddha nature, when you're concentrating on wisdom and compassion. It's like a bird with two wings. The bird has to have two wings to fly. And those wings are, for us Buddhists, on one side you have compassion, and on the other side you have wisdom. And with those two things working together, we fly off to awakening or enlightenment. Or actually, those two wings help us stay afloat on the Eightfold Path. So they say that, say you want to be wise and focus on wisdom only, well, you can memorize every scripture ever written about Buddhism. You can go get a PhD in Buddhism. You can study. You can learn Pali. You can learn Sanskrit. You can learn Tibetan. You can be the greatest scholar in the world, but you're going to be a dry, inactive, be unable to help other people with that knowledge, and that knowledge may not even help you. You may be able to speak articulately about Buddhism and explain it in a cold, dry, scholarly way, but that's not going to break through the core into somebody's heart. That's not going to change their life. You have to be authentic, and it has to come from a place of compassion, and there has to be love mixed into it in order for it to be meaningful and relevant and actually be able to help anybody. We have a local grocery store, and there's this girl there that makes tortillas. She makes the dough in these little balls, and she puts them on this conveyor belt, and that conveyor belt flattens them out and cooks them and makes tortillas. And I have like a running joke with her every time I walk by. She's wearing this hairnet and this white coat and everything, and I say, "Excuse me, miss, are those tortillas made with love?" And she always laughs. "Of course they are, sir." So every time we see each other, we do this. But I mean, basically, that's it. If you want to be a Buddhist, if you want to share your faith with other people, if you want to have it affect yourself, you got to have wisdom. You have to learn about Buddhism, but you have to mix love with it. You have to mix compassion with it. You have to mix generosity to it. And then you'll naturally do things karmically that cause positive results instead of negative results. You don't have to write down the Eightfold Path and every second of the day refer to your list to see if you're living the Eightfold Path. Just learn about Buddhism and add compassion and love to it. So you have the one wing that's wisdom, and then the other wing is compassion. You can be a compassionate idiot, you know. You can be a doormat for people to just use you and spit you out. Sometimes to be a bodhisattva, it's walking that fine balance between wisdom and compassion. You know, maybe I come from a history of working with people that are living on the streets. For years, I taught meditation out on the streets and in meditation centers. I mean, homeless shelters. And so I was in the homeless community teaching meditation and doing Dharma talks and things like that. But I didn't always give people money. I didn't always, um, somebody needs a ride, somebody needs a couch, somebody needs, there's all these needs in the homeless community. But sometimes the most beatific or the most wise thing I could do is say no. You know, if you feel like, this person's always in crisis and they're always asking you for money, but then later on you see that they're actually on heroin or smoking crack or something like that. And I'm not saying the homeless community is all like that. I'm just saying it could be your own relatives, it could be your own children, it could be your brother, your sister, it could be somebody that you know real well. Once you build that relationship with them and they're always in crisis and they're always needing something, and out of compassion, you're constantly giving it to them, but then you realize that it's doing more harm than good. You need to stop that. The most compassionate thing to do is say no. That's what a bodhisattva, if you go back and read about bodhisattvas, there was even a bodhisattva, if you study the black hat dance, the Tibetan black hat dance, there was a Tibetan Lama that did a dance in front of a king, and he had a bow and arrow inside of his robe. And when he danced in front of the king, he put his arms inside of his robe and pulled back the arrow and shot the arrow through his sleeve and killed the king. And that was because the king of Tibet at that time was insane. Like, he was slaughtering people, he was imprisoning people, he was destroying the economy. Just, you talk about some of these rulers, like emperors that set their own cities on fire and they're mad. One wrong move and you're in chains, or one wrong move, you're beheaded. That's the type of king this was, a dictator. And so this very spiritual Tibetan Lama actually killed the king, assassinated him, because that was the most compassionate thing that he could do for all sentient beings. So we have a misunderstanding about compassion and loving kindness. Sometimes it looks very dark at first, and I think life is like that. Sometimes we go through these dark errors, these dark ages where we think that all compassion and love is gone, when in fact we're being pushed, maybe even like the fast forward button is on, so that in retaliation, or the pendulum swings into the darkness so that we can really long for the light. And we come back, the pendulum comes back and swings over here, saying, okay, well, we thought we wanted this type of government or policies, but it got so dark and it got so bad that we realized that maybe we do want spirituality. We do want understanding. We do want peace. We do want love. So the universe itself, I think, has very much an aspect of being a bodhisattva, teaching us the things that we need to know in order to reach ultimate enlightenment, even if it doesn't feel good at the time, that the universe isn't all compassionate. It's wise too. It doesn't give us everything that we want. It gives us everything we need for our spiritual growth. Well, we'll pick this up again in another video. Peace. Namaste.